But I've got a lot of. I put a handout on your table, and do I need this, or can everybody hear me? Oh, I do. Oh, yes, sir. I got it. um, I put a handout on your table. I just had kind of typed up some notes for you guys. Wanted to just really go over some of the changes and how COVID has been affecting your business recently, or affecting business in general, and just kind of some facts, some FAQs, some frequently asked questions. And for those of you who don't know, Oasis, we were acquired by Paychex. Gosh, I think it's about 2 years ago now. So I have some information on here that we did a poll of our clients nationwide, and so we have a pretty large client base to pull from. And one of the polls that they did was, what is the highest priority now, given that the pandemic has persisted longer than I think everybody initially thought. I don't know about you, but when they sent us to work from home, I thought, oh, I'm just going to be there for 2 weeks, right? Like, I didn't grab anything that I needed from my office. I just showed up with my computer at home, and then all of a sudden just ended up staying there. And their highest priority is really supporting their workforce, keeping their employees and their customers safe. That's what everybody is really focusing on right now. And then they polled, what is stressing their employees. And the answers that they got was the ongoing uncertainty, change fatigue, economic uncertainty, just the emotional roller coaster, right, of being isolated at home for a lot of those remote workers. And then dual role of parents. I don't know. I'm sure I know several of you that have kids. I'm sure some of them are doing remote learning at home. Yes. And then just the isolation and loneliness. So how do we support, how do they support their workers? How do they support their customers, and keep them safe? And there are a couple things, and we'll talk about this kind of as I go through the handout here. But there are two regulations that have really come into play in regards to supporting the workforce recently. The first one is the Americans with Disabilities Act, and then the second one is FMLA, or the Family Medical Leave Act, because both of those have to do with essentially providing paid leave to your employees. Providing paid leave to your employees if they go out, like if they're sick or if they have a family member that's sick. And so those are the two regulations that have really been in play, and that our HR team has been dealing with a lot lately. So to address kind of the Americans with Disabilities Act first, the biggest piece of that is obviously you want to protect your employees' information, right? So if somebody tests positive, right, they can't come into work, that is absolutely, while you're doing your due diligence to make sure that all your employees who have come into contact with that employee, right, that they're aware that they need to quarantine and that sort of thing, you still cannot disclose who that employee is, right? You have to protect their information. And then when they come back to work, right, so providing a reasonable accommodation. Maybe they're scared to come back to work because they contracted COVID. They don't want to come back to work. Is there a reasonable accommodation? Or maybe they have one of the lingering symptoms, or they had a very serious case, and now they have some sort of a limitation, and they can't come back to work in their regular function, right? Providing them, they would now be considered disabled, providing them a reasonable accommodation for their role if you can. And then obviously FMLA, providing leave for a family, for an employee, paid leave if they have a family member who got sick or they got sick themselves. So those are the two regulations that we're really seeing come into play. And excuse me. So let's talk about, I guess, really with those things in mind, right? Those regulations in mind, what are people doing to keep their employees safe? Productivity and mental health; those are really kind of the top two pieces when it comes to your employees. we surveyed about 1,000 of our clients' employees, and 51% said that their mental health has worsened since this has gone on. On-site workers are more stressed than remote workers. 1/3 have said that they're having a difficult time performing at the same level that they were prior to the pandemic. And so how do you address those things? First of all, what a lot of our clients are doing, right? They're promoting remote work whenever possible. Shortened work days, flexible work days, working around schedules, around school schedules. When you think about employees that are having a hard time performing at the same level of productivity, maybe they have their kids at home, right? And they're doing remote work, or Dr. Wong, were you raising your hand? Oh, okay. No, sorry. Um, no, you're fine. They're doing remote work and they're having a hard time keeping their productivity up because they're always getting interrupted by, "Hey, mom," or "Hey, dad, I can't get on my class, right? The internet's not working," or, "Hey, the teacher just told me that I'm in trouble, because of X, Y, or Z," right? So they're getting interrupted all day. So providing flexible work schedules. So to give you an idea, one of the things that one of my clients have done is with their staff, especially their staff that has employees that have kids at home, they let them have flexible work hours. So they understand, hey, from this time to this time every day, they're helping their kid with school, and they're working from 4 to 7 in the afternoon, but from 12 to 4, their employee is helping their kid and they're unavailable. So just kind of taking all of those things into consideration to help with the load, because everybody is dealing with a lot more than what they're used to. In regards to returning employees, right? So your employees that are actually at work, that are considered essential, things like cleaning your workspaces, your protective equipment, limiting the number of customers, allowing employees to work from home, barriers and distancing. We were just talking about with Mitch earlier some of the things that they have done to protect their employees. Things like plastic barriers, things of that nature. And then just becoming familiar with your state and local guidelines. And then you want to make sure that you put those things in your policies now, right? It's important that you put those things in your policies and you roll them out to your employees so that they understand, hey, this is what we're doing to keep you safe, right? We understand you're here at work, you're more stressed. And so we're trying, we're giving it our best effort. We've looked at our state, our state and federal guidelines. We're doing everything that they suggest in order to keep you safe, and do trainings with your employees on that, so that they know what you're doing, and they can feel confident in that, when they come to work. For those of you who don't know, and this is something that has happened recently, OSHA and the TWC, they have deemed COVID a workers' comp compensable event. So if you have an employee who believes that they caught COVID at work, they can make a workers' comp claim, especially if maybe they were out of work, right? Whether they were quarantined or they had a serious case and they ended up in the hospital, things of that nature. So it's really important, that you guys protect yourselves, especially if you have employees who are going on-site meetings, or they are doing, they're working in the office, because they could make a workers' comp claim, which obviously in the long run, right, if that claim is paid out, that affects your rates, right? That affects your modification rate. So it's really important that you're training your employees on those things. In regards to, supporting your remote workers, a lot of those remote workers are feeling isolated. So you want to make sure that for those workers, you're setting really clear policies and procedures, and then you're offering technologies to help them connect, right? That connection is very important right now, so that they don't feel quite so isolated. And then you want to coach your managers on how to stay visible without micromanaging. I know that that's something that actually, I've had to work really, really hard at, with managing my team and just going, okay, hey, how's your day going? But not, hey, tell me what you've done today, right? How many calls have you made? How many, right? Because your employees aren't in the office and you don't have quite as good of a handle on what's going on. So you want to coach your managers on, hey, how are you going to manage? How are you going to lead this team, but without micromanaging them, because that's really a culture killer, right? And then, conduct engagement and team building activities remotely, whether it's your virtual happy hours, or growth opportunities through LMS systems, right? Give them opportunities to still continue to grow in their career, and connect with people, but without again, the opportunity to do that remotely. And then, the next, right, is complying with leave laws. And that's kind of what we were talking about, the ADA and FMLA. Complying with the leave laws, making sure that you do provide your employees when they're sick, the opportunity to take that leave. Now, obviously, I know that the FFCRA, that expires December 31st. So those of you who maybe, I'm sure some of you probably had to pay that mandatory 10-week paid leave. That piece obviously is just expiring at the end of the year, but the FMLA and the ADA, those continue, right? I know we all know this is not this is not going away anytime soon. And so your employees will still be eligible for leave under those two regulations. The FMLA, just so that you guys know, if you have it, you only have to comply and provide leave under the FMLA if you have 50 employees within a 75-mile radius. So keep that in mind. That regulation only applies to businesses that are larger than 50. So, but it is a regulation that your employees can file for leave underneath. Next, you want to avoid discrimination claims. This is kind of a big one, because what employers are starting to run into is when employees don't want to return to work. Maybe they've caught a case, they don't want to return to work, they are scared to return to work, and yes. Yep, absolutely. You want to make sure that you're dotting your I's and crossing your T's, because what they could come back and do is say, hey, they didn't offer me my job back. And so on the front end, when that employee goes out on leave, you want to make sure you document when they go out on leave. You want to make sure that you document how long that leave is supposed to be for. And then if you make them an offer to return to work, you want to make sure that you have documented that you made an offer, that you have made a reasonable accommodation if that is needed based on their condition to return to work. And you want to document when you expect their response to that offer of employment. And then you want to document their response to that offer of employment. So that way you have yourself protected if they come back and say, I was not made an offer of employment or was not done within the guidelines, and they're discriminating against me now based on my disability because I had COVID. So make sure that you dot your I's, cross your T's, in an instance like that. Does anybody have, before I go on, does anybody have questions on that? Does anybody run into a situation where they had an employee that didn't want to come back to work? Yeah. Well, that is only for the Family Medical Leave Act. So for pay, so FFCRA, that expires in December, and that's for anybody under 500 that requires the paid leave due to COVID. The FMLA, Family Medical Leave Act, You are required to offer leave. You are not required to offer paid leave under family medical. Some employers do, some employers don't. That is if you have 50 employees within a 75-mile radius. The ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act, the reason that COVID is starting to fall under the ADA is because people are claiming, hey, I'm at a disability now, right? I'm at a disadvantage because I have had COVID. Whether it's a long-term lasting effect, whether it is somebody who's just scared to return to work, right? And so now maybe they have a mental health issue, right? Those things are falling under the Americans with Disabilities Act. And so there is paid leave under the ADA. And so that is, again, why you want to dot your I's and cross your T's if you are, sending somebody out on leave because of COVID. Yes. You mean shut down for the time being till everybody has negative tests? A lot of employers are choosing to do that. Absolutely. You want to act in what is considered the safest manner for your employees. If you have employees who have COVID, obviously you probably, in order to keep your customers safe, until employees have negative tests, that may be something you want to consider. Yeah, we're seeing kind of we're seeing a couple different approaches. One is if somebody gets sick, they are tracing. There's I guess essentially, for lack of a better term, contact tracing, right? Like anybody who was within a 6-foot radius, or anybody who was in close contact, and they are asking people to go home and quarantine, or get a test or whatever. And then also we are seeing some employers who are handling it a little bit more liberally and saying, hey, everybody was wearing their PPE. If you don't have symptoms, we need you here to work. You're considered essential. I want to be very careful how I answer that because I'm not an attorney. I do not believe that you are required to offer testing.
Sites for people that don't have insurance.
Yes, there are. There are free testing sites for employees who don't have insurance. Now, if you are going to require them to be tested, that might be a different story. But again, I'm not an attorney, so I don't want to advise you one way or another. But I can ask our legal department and.
Has the government issued some kind of legal thing that this is standard protocol? An employee tests positive in the workplace, therefore then, the SOP or standard operating protocol is what happens next.
Standard operating protocol would be, anybody who is considered in close contact, you would let them know they've been in close contact with somebody. But again, we have employers who are saying, hey, you've been in close contact. If you're not exhibiting symptoms, you're an essential worker. We can't shut down. We need you at work. And we're having some clients who just they shut down a department. They shut down entirely. Everyone's
in your papers here that we need to all update our employee handbooks related to COVID. Do you have some of the verbiage that people are using to update their employee handbooks? And if you do, could you potentially send that out to Ronnie and then she could forward to the chapter?
Our HR managers have that. I don't specifically have that, but I'll see what I can do on that. I'll see what I can do on that.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
All right.
Yes. Yep. Oh, right. Yep. That would be something that, like, whenever you have a workers' comp claim, you go through an investigation, right? And that would be something that would come out in the investigation and say, hey, everybody tested negative. This employee tested positive. And then the carrier would determine whether or not that's a claim that's going to be paid out. Most of the time, an employee is going to self-identify themselves. Most of the time, they're going to say, hey, I caught COVID. Most of the time, that's what's going to happen is an employee is going to do that. Now, you as the employer, you would go to your employees and say, hey, we have somebody who has tested positive for COVID. You have been in close contact. You may want to get tested, or you may want to, you may want to stay home or whatever. Follow the CDC guidelines and quarantine at home for 2 weeks, work from home for 2 weeks, whatever. But most employees will self-identify themselves. So, yes. I don't have any information on that yet, but I know we will soon, because our legal department actually is very involved with actually in DC, right? Our legal department is very involved. So we typically get some guidance on that early on. So I don't have anything on it yet, but I know that we will. And we should. I would expect that we would have it soon, because I know they're trying to reach a deal here soon. Any other questions? Okay. So the last one of the last pieces is supporting your workers with children. We have just a couple more points to go through here. I know a lot of you probably do have employees with children at home. Heck, I know some of you have children at home, and you guys are probably trying children or grandchildren or what, right? I mean, I have employees that, their grandchildren are at home too, so with them. So it's definitely a very real obstacle that a lot of employers are having to deal with. And your employees they're really grappling with, how do I keep my productivity, fit in a full day's work and not sacrifice my children's education, right? Not sacrifice, these things that are priorities at home too, because never before, I think, have we had such competing priorities in the home all day, every day. And so, as an employer, what we're advising our clients to do is, hey, anticipate, right? We're going to have long-term child care challenges. This is not just, hey, now it's 2021, new year, everything is going back to normal, right? We're going to have some long-term challenges, and really, depending on the school, you may have schools that have changed kind of permanently, right? Where this may be a challenge of something that's going to persist beyond COVID. And so you want to make sure with those employees, you're having honest and direct communication, of, hey, tell me, what does your day look like? Right? When do your kids need your most attention? When are they needing the most help from you? Having that open and honest communication with them, and then determine what their essential functions are, right? What is essential that you need to get done, maybe on certain timelines, right? Maybe you have certain functions that have to be done every day by a certain time, right? Determine what those functions are and work out a schedule with your employees of, hey, how can we make that work? How can we accommodate, so that you don't have to sacrifice your kids and you don't have to sacrifice your work. The other thing, obviously, to consider is a leave, is a temporary leave to let them figure things out, sort things out, and then return to their work. We do have clients who have done that. Now that type of leave would fall under FMLA. That would fall under the family medical leave, if you were offering it. So you would allow your employee to go home, work out things at home. It would fall under family leave. They would work it out, come back with a schedule of, okay, here's what I need to do in order to do my job effectively. Now I have this all sorted out. And you would decide whether or not you could make a reasonable accommodation at that point. So you can consider leave as well to allow your employees to figure out what needs to happen, especially, now that we're going through rollbacks, opening rollbacks again, right? Now the capacity is being reduced and things like that. If we end up in a situation where daycares are forced to shut down again, things of that nature, that may be something that you want to consider as a temporary leave for an employee while daycare is shut down. Um, so there are lots of things to consider, but having that open and honest communication with your employee, that's what's key. Yes. Yes. If you are offering FMLA, right? If you are offering family medical leave, there are very distinct guidelines on how long the leave can last. So, family medical leave is 12 weeks. That's the extent of the leave. And at that point, if you are offering leave, so up to 12 weeks, you would have to guarantee that individual's job under FMLA. If you are not offering FMLA, if you are not required to and you choose not to, then we're an at-will state, like you said. So it's a matter of making sure that you're treating your employees with consistency, right? To protect yourself in the event that somebody turned around and, sued you for harassment or discrimination or whatever. No, you are not. You are not. If you are under 50 employees within a 75-mile radius, you are not required. So yes, that's correct. Any other questions? Okay, cool. Just kind of what we're seeing from the potential expected long-term effects of what's going on from an HR perspective. Um, we are expecting to see employers to continue to, even past COVID, right, to continue to allow employees to remote work, to work from home. Um, and we're, increased use of technology, right? So lots of Zoom, lots of WebEx, all those all those long video conference meetings that we love. An increased use of social media, and we're expected to see permanent flexible work days. Um, whether it's because school has will end up fundamentally changing, right? Some of those things we don't know, but we expect to see permanent flexible work days, so that so that employers can support their employees better. And from like a what's next standpoint, I guess, we while we saw a lot of employers, right, they furloughed or they let people go, or they have employees who didn't return to work, or they went through layoffs, or heck, there's a lot of businesses who have closed down, like especially very small businesses. There is a lot of really good talent out there because of that. So we are seeing employers who are in very strong financial positions go after very good talent. Whether it's to take somebody from a competitor that maybe doesn't seem like they're on quite as solid ground as you are, or they have a competitor that is shut down. Employers are going after very strong talent. Again, we expect work from home to continue, and workplace safety is going to look very different, I think. I don't, my personal opinion, which is not worth much, but my personal opinion is that COVID probably long-term won't be a workers' comp compensable claim. However, what employers have to do in order to keep their employees safe, I think will, or considered safe, will forever have changed at this point. Yes. Uh-huh. Um, that is a good question. I don't have an answer for that yet. We don't have an answer for that yet. Um, Yep. Um, s- yeah, we don't have an answer on that yet. I would expect that we'll have some legal guidance on that soon because the vaccine is coming out. Obviously, right, employers aren't, they don't mandate the flu vaccine. But there are certain industries that do. I know you're in the medical field, so you know, so there are a lot of industries that do, right? If you work in like a long-term care facility, a lot of those require a flu vaccine in order to work. So, mhm, mhm, mhm. The employees go out sick. I mean, they fall under whatever that company's PTO policy is, whether they offer sick days or not, or whatever. I mean, they either go out sick without pay if they don't offer sick days, or they go out sick with paid sick days, depending on what the PTO policy is. Hmm. So yeah, I'm sure we will have some guidance on that. We don't yet. Um, So, because I mean, I know you guys are probably seeing there are a lot of companies, it's all over the news, right? Venues, right, that will say, hey, you have to have a COVID vaccine if you want to come to a concert or you want to come to a sports game or whatever. I mean, there's a lot of that stuff circulating around. I, it'll be interesting to see how long that holds up. I don't really know. But we'll have guidance on whether or not you can require a vaccine at some point. We just don't have that yet. Um, so, any other questions? That's really all that I have today. Do you guys have any other questions? Okay. Well, thank you. So I said gave kind of like the 2 second spiel of who we are, but we do. Oasis does handle the HR back office, so the payroll, benefits, HR, workers comp. We have put, just so that you guys are aware, we've actually started offering a really cool new service because of COVID, of just HR consulting services only, which is really exciting. It's something that we're really excited to offer, where you can get HR consulting services without having to do the full package. So, anyways, yeah. We do it per head. So for you guys have about 12, 13 employees? Oh, okay. Okay. Um, so I probably say HR, yes, five. Yeah. Yeah. So it's very affordable. Um, so if you're looking for, some guidance and stuff right now, we can help. So thank you guys. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Lane. All right, that's it. We appreciate you coming.